The sun hung low over the horizon, painting the rice fields in shades of amber and gold. A warm breeze danced through the tall grasses of the Philippine countryside, carrying with it the faint sound of children's laughter and the rhythmic strike of a bolo cutting through sugarcane. In the middle of this peaceful landscape stood Lakay, a man of quiet strength, a farmer, a father, and a soldier of life's unending battles. Lakay wasn't his real name. In the small town of San Miguel, people called him Lakay out of respect, an elder, a pillar, a man whose words carried weight and whose silence commanded honor. Behind his stern eyes lived 1,000 untold stories, some filled with love, others carved by pain. He had once been a soldier in the city, serving with pride and valor, but like many of his time, he returned home to rebuild what war had left behind. He traded bullets for plows and commands for compassion, but destiny, cruel and unyielding, was not done testing him. A peaceful life interrupted. Lakay's farm stretched over several hectares of fertile land. Every morning, before the first light touched the earth, he would rise, offer a silent prayer, and step into the fields barefoot. His hands, calloused and strong, spoke of a lifetime of labor, not just in the soil, but in the soul. He lived a humble life with his wife Elena, a woman of grace and quiet beauty, and their son Ramon, a spirited young man with dreams that reached beyond the mountains. Elena often worried about the world outside, the growing influence of powerful landowners, the corrupt officials who preyed upon the weak, and the young men in town who vanished after standing up to them. Lakay, ever the protector, would only nod and say, "Ang masama, kahit gaano katagal itago, lilitaw din yan." And now I'll continue with the rest of the story, read in English only for the rest of the dialogue. The peace of San Miguel was shattered one afternoon when trucks rolled into town. The villagers stopped what they were doing as men in polished boots and dark sunglasses stepped out. At their center stood Don Victor, a ruthless businessman backed by local politicians. He came with one mission: to seize the lands for a mining project. When Don Victor's men pinned eviction notices to trees and fences, the people trembled. Many signed away their land out of fear, but not Lakay. He tore down the paper and looked Don Victor in the eyes. "Ang lupa, dugo yan ng mga ninuno namin. Hindi mo mabibili yan." Don Victor smiled, the kind of smile that hides venom. "Lahat ng bagay may presyo, Lakay, kahit dangal." But he turned his back and walked away. That simple act of defiance lit a fire in the town, a spark of hope that resistance was still possible. The people began to rally around him, calling him their leader once again. A man's burden. Night after night, Lakay and the townsfolk met in secret near the river bank. They spoke in whispers, planned how to defend their lands. Young men volunteered to stand guard, and old farmers offered their tools as weapons. The community became one, bound by fear, but also by courage. Ramon, however, grew restless. He wanted to fight openly, to challenge Don Victor's armed men head-on. Lakay warned him against it. "Anak, hindi lakas ang panlaban sa kasamaan, isip." But youth has its own fire. Ramon began sneaking off, meeting with rebels who promised quick justice. Elena, torn between maternal fear and pride, begged Lakay to stop him. But how can a father restrain the fire of his own blood? The first strike. One night, the inevitable happened. Don Victor's men raided the village, burning houses and shooting into the air to drive people away. Lakay, awakened by the chaos, rushed into the flames to save the villagers. He pulled a child from a burning hut, shielded an old man from gunfire, and fought with nothing but a wooden stick. His rage and righteousness his only weapons. When the smoke cleared, 3 people were dead. Among them was Elena, who had been struck while protecting another woman's child. The world fell silent for Lakay. He knelt beside her lifeless body, his hands trembling, his tears mixing with ash and dust. The once peaceful man of the soil had now lost the one reason he had for peace. He buried her beneath a mango tree on their land, whispering, "Patawarin mo ako, mahal ko. Pinili kong maging mabuti pero ngayong kinuha na nila ang lahat, wala nang natitirang kabaitan." The return of the warrior. Lakay returned to his home that night and opened an old wooden chest. Inside lay his soldier's uniform, faded but still intact. His bolu knife gleamed faintly in the candlelight. He ran his fingers across it as if touching the past once more. The quiet farmer was gone. The soldier had returned. By dawn, word spread that Lakay was preparing for war. The villagers, still grieving, found in him a new symbol of vengeance. He didn't rally them with speeches. He led by silence. His eyes alone told them that justice would come even if he had to walk through hell to bring it. Don Victor, hearing this, sent more men to crush the rebellion. But this time, he was not defending. He was attacking. He struck at night with precision born from years of discipline. One by one, the men who terrorized the town began to fall. The villagers whispered his name in awe. The legend of Lakay grew. A man turned myth, a farmer turned fighter, an avenger forged in grief. The blood of the land. Ramon returned from hiding, horrified by what he saw. His father had become a ghost, a man consumed by vengeance. He tried to reason with him. "Tay, hindi na ito laban, ito na'y digmaan." But Lakay only replied, "Kung hindi ako lalaban, anak, sino?" Ramon wept for the man his father once was, and for the world that forced him to change. The once green fields were now battlegrounds. The river that had once reflected the golden sunsets now ran red with blood. And in the distance, Don Victor prepared his final move to burn the entire village to the ground. But Lakay was already waiting.
The night was thick with smoke and silence. The once vibrant village of San Miguel now stood on the edge of destruction. Charred homes smoldered under the pale light of the moon, and the air was heavy with the scent of loss. In the shadows of his burning land, Lakay stood motionless, a solitary figure carved from pain and fire. The glow of the flames reflected in his eyes, not as light, but as fury. He had fought for peace once, but peace had been taken from him. Now, vengeance was all that remained. The gentle farmer was gone. What stood there was the warrior reborn, molded again by injustice. The last stand begins. Rumors had spread like wildfire. Don Victor, the landowner who stole, bribed, and killed without consequence, had set his eyes on finishing what he started. He wanted every inch of San Miguel burned, every soul silenced. At the town plaza, his men gathered with gasoline barrels and rifles. The villagers hid in fear, but from the darkness a familiar voice echoed, calm, low, and filled with power. "Hindi mo kailangan sunugin ang lupa para maghari, Don Victor. Pero ngayon, ako ang magsusunog ng kasamaan mo. You don't need to burn the land to rule it, Don Victor. But tonight, I'll burn away your evil." The men froze. From behind the smoke, Lakay emerged, bolo knife in hand, face smeared with ashes like a soldier painted for battle. His presence alone silenced the crowd. Don Victor smirked. "You again. You're just one man against 20. Lakay took a step forward, eyes like steel. Then, "It's a fair fight."